Hi, I'm Pam Sadler, starting the League of Women Voters in Bay County. And the League is a citizens organization, voluntary. It's been around since 1920, and our purpose is to help improve government and participation in the government. And we were originally formed from the movement that helped secure the right for women to vote, the suffrage movement. Once they secured the right to vote, they said there's more to be done, and there's always more to be done to help protect everyone's voting rights. It's a nonpartisan group. We don't support or oppose any candidate for office, but just because we're nonpartisan doesn't mean we don't have opinions. And if anybody wants to see the opinions, go to leagueofwomenvoters.org or leagueofwomenvotersmichigan.org, and you can read all about our opinions, all about our positions. And those positions came about by a study, research study, and then a consensus of opinion. So they're not one person's opinion, there are a large organization's opinion, because the League is national, state, and local, which we have a member that used to be a part of the League 25, 30 years ago when it was still in Bay County. Yeah, I'm talking about you. So. We are trying to get people to join so we can grow and start studying and researching issues that are facing Bay County and getting positions going for that. We accept people, anyone over 16, men, women. If you're over 16, we'd love to have you. We also do educational programs, and this is considered an educational program. We do have an elected official, but he's already in office, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Bay County. We're all volunteers here, so you are welcome to donate to the group, donate to the League as well. That will help us with all of our pamphlets. There are a bunch of pamphlets on the back table. Feel free to fill them out take one as you leave, and we do have membership forms. Being as we're a new organization, we are under the control of Midland County League, and we do have our Midland County President, Catherine Redwine, here. So they will be involved with us, and we'll be involved with that league for about 2 years before we become independent. So join our efforts, improve the community, our state, and our government. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Barcia, Jim Barcia. He's our Bay County executive.
Thank you very much, Pam.
You.
I want to, first of all, Pam, thank you for organizing this event and say how encouraged I am that the League of Women Voters may again be a presence in the political arena here in Bay County. Now, I can't recall in 1976, in my first campaign for state representative, whether or not there was a league, but I know Alice York and a number of activists, Kathleen, the realtor. Yeah, Kathleen McMorris, and a number of, and of course Edna, and a number of women and political activists in Bay County were involved in the League of Women Voters over a series of election cycles that I was a candidate. And it's true that you don't endorse, but that's good because Republicans and Democrats and independents like an unbiased source of information about where candidates stand on issues, whether it's choice, whether it's gun control, whether it's taxes, whether it's regulations, whatever information helps a voter make an informed decision about who would best represent their views and their concerns is helpful to the political process. And it also stimulates and motivates voters to actually be involved in the political process and cast their ballots, either absentee or in person at the polls. The biggest thing we have to fight in our country right now is, I'm sure you agree, Pam, and all of you in the audience, is apathy. Because when people just don't bother to cast their ballot, they sometimes, a lot of times, end up with policies and incumbents that they wish they didn't have, but they thought that their single vote wouldn't make a difference. When you have tens of thousands of people, like you did in Michigan last presidential election, that 10,000 votes could have swung major electoral votes. And we all know of candidates, even here locally, that won or lost by one vote. So every vote counts, and it's helpful that we have a nonpartisan organization like the League of Women Voters that presents issues in their entirety in an unbiased fashion, in a straight up, format for a voter to read about that issue and then determine how they may want to cast their ballot according to the issues that they're passionate about. And so I want to thank you for hosting this, probably your first event, probably since you've launched your Bay County organization. I want to thank Midland County for helping Bay County launch this, and I hope to see it grow and expand and become more of an influence in providing that information that voters desperately need, because we've had an implosion. We're just talking about that with Pastor Teisch. We've had an implosion of the print industry in terms of reporting and journalism. It seems very difficult, if you've got good news, to get it covered locally in particularly the print media. You can send news release after news release and progress that you're making, but it's just ignored. And if there's something negative, they'll probably be there to cover it. But I do want to say, I think in the announcement on this session tonight that I'd be talking about the budget, and I will, but I'll try to give a cursory overview of our budget and where we're at, and then really open it to questions and dialogue with you. You came out tonight, you all have different places you could have been, but you're here, and so I want to make sure that the use of your time is best spent by my addressing, from the county executive standpoint, issues of concern to you, whether it's the replacement of the Independence Bridge, or whether it's animal control and more, I guess, best practices being that we're actually implementing over at our animal control facility, taking us from the bottom of the heap, just above Wayne County, second to last in kill rates, up. I think by the end of this year, the figures for 2017 will be very encouraging, because we've got a committee I appointed, and we've laid out a plan, and we're adopting those practices, and our euthanization rate is almost plummeted, almost nothing. Basically, animals, pets that are brought by their owners for humane transition to the afterlife because of kidney failure or terminal illness, or in the case of violent dogs that have temperament issues that represent a threat to the public, then they may be euthanized. But healthy, adoptable pets, we want to save every one of them. 2 weeks ago on Saturday, we had a Clear the Shelters event, and we adopted out 19 dogs and 42 cats. And that was one of the lowest censuses we've had. Every animal was gone, adopted. We had people waiting in line for an hour and a half to adopt a pet. At the county level, we waived the adoption fees, and with a grant from Bissell, but also working with All About Animals, we're able to neuter and spay every animal, every dog and cat that comes in, and also if you have potbelly pigs and other animals that constitute pets as well, guinea pigs. But we also vaccinate and then adopt out. And now we have such a demand, and our shelter is nearly empty. What we want to do is start screening probably some of the applicants for adoption to make sure that that animal is going to have a warm, loving, forever home, as opposed to being placed in dire circumstances or abandoned, or in some cases, euthanized simply because Bay County couldn't afford the food and didn't have the space. But we're hoping to have a dramatic turnaround on that front. We worked on the Bay County Golf Course because for about 15 years it had sort of fallen into neglect. Our golf carts, I'm not a golfer, but I'm sensitive to the fact that a lot of people stay healthy by golfing, and some people have a passion for it. And all of our golf carts were 18 years old, and so we got 20 new carts this past spring. And I put in a request in the 2018 budget for additional golf carts. We refurbished the golf course clubhouse, did landscaping, and we're working on drainage issues out there to make it more attractive, increase the traffic. But they have a good record because every year they've never lost money. They've always generated a a large amount of money that could go into the general fund, or in some cases subsidize the Bay County Civic Arena, our Olympic-sized double ice rink out on Shrestha Drive there at the Bay County Civic Arena. What I'll do is, and there's other issues where I'll just mention a couple before I get to the budget. February of last year, I was elected to the board of directors of the County Executives of America. And we have about 700 county executives, but we have several hundred other more individuals who have different titles. Like on the East Coast, they're called borough presidents. In Texas, they're called county judges. But what they are is county executives, actually. And so it's in total an organization of about 3,000 individuals from across the country. And due to the fact that Bay County has the highest rate of prescriptions for oxycodone and OxyContin, we're number one out of all 83 counties. I was, and also seeing firsthand, the devastation that drug addiction wreaks on families, individuals, and the community at large. I accepted an appointment to the National Task Force on Opiate Abuse. And I don't know if any of you had a chance to see 60 Minutes. Last Sunday, they had a segment about how many millions of scripts were written at pill mills down in the state of Florida to residents of West Virginia and Ohio and other parts of the Midwest, where they get tens of thousands of pills. Insurance would pay for them, Medicare would pay for them, Medicaid or whatever, and then they would sell them on the streets for between $5 and $8 per pill. And they weren't paying, they had no outlay to actually acquire the medications. Now I brought something that for tonight. This was in yesterday's Detroit News. Feds, doctor flooded streets with pain pills right here in Michigan. A Southfield doctor, might as well mention his name because he was in the Detroit News and he's been indicted. St. Clair Shores doctor flooded the streets with more than 4 million doses of powerful pain medications and other drugs that are being abused amid the nation's opioid crisis. And this morning, President Trump did declare a state of national emergency with our opioid crisis in America. And West Virginia, I spoke at the NACO convention last June, National Association of Counties down in Columbus, Ohio. And I did a little bit of research on the issue, and I found that West Virginia, a state of 1.8 million people, over a period of 6 years, got 128 million prescriptions for oxycodone and OxyContin, just those two drugs. Now, we're all compassionate about people who have chronic pain, and we need to look for alternatives and options for people who are dealing with chronic pain. But we're not really helping them if they become addicted to opioids. It's affecting our younger generation. Here in Bay County, I get the stats that the media doesn't always cover because it's considered private medical information. But we have way too many overdose deaths, with fentanyl being cut with heroin and causing almost instant death when it's injected or ingested. The other issue is the number of overdoses that cause considerable costs to our healthcare system and our law enforcement costs. So with this litigation that we'll be announcing on December 1st in Washington, I have our corporation counsel trying to track all of the costs, both the law enforcement, healthcare costs, costs to our community as a result of opioid addiction. So that's one issue, but I'm looking for it. I'll go through basically where we're at with the budget, and then we'll be happy to entertain any comments, suggestions, or if you have a question for me. That I think is the most important part of the program. So I'll cover a little bit about the budget. Strives to balance the needs of the citizens of Bay County and its employees while ensuring fiscal responsibility and excellent service to the Bay County community. Now, I do want you to know my budget will be balanced. I've submitted a balanced budget with a little bit of tweaking. I've let the Board of Commissioners determine on the large capital expenditures what priority they might have, whether it's HVAC system at animal control, the steps on the county building, which are getting a little rickety and need replacement, a number of other issues, the community center, the civic arena. We have a sealant issue there on the exterior of the building. So they're kind of high cost items, and I'll let the Board of Commissioners weigh in on those, but certainly my budget will be balanced, and I'm engaging in discussions with the commissioners and Mr. Bob Redmond, the fiscal analyst, and we're all working together toward ensuring that Bay County has a balanced budget, as is required and has been required of every county since Public Act 2 of 1968 was signed into law. It's illegal for a municipality, a village, or a county to not have a balanced budget by January 1st of each year. If they're approaching that date and they don't have it, they have to lay off, cut expenditures, whatever they need to do to make sure that their budget is balanced. So the total county spending for all funds for 2018 will be budgeted at $140 million, and that's up from 2017 at $137 million. And the total general fund expenditures are budgeted at $36.8 million, up from 2017 of $35.6 million also. The additional $1.2 million is made up of negotiated wages and benefit increases that were done in December of 2016. And my predecessor was overseeing that, and I appreciate what he did because county employees had gone 9 years without a pay raise. So they were long overdue for a pay raise. I'd like to see pay raises come with every contract, because you fall when consumer prices rise, and you go year after year after year without pay raise, it actually constitutes a cut. And so we had deputy sheriffs, for example, that were earning approximately $14 an hour, risking their lives, protecting the public on a daily basis. And they were actually in Bay County applying for positions with law enforcement in the city of Essexville, Hampton Township, Saginaw Township, different law enforcement agencies. And they were really good, dedicated law enforcement professionals. So I'm glad that we, even though it's constricted the budget and the ability we have for the next 3 years, we will make up for that. And one of the reasons that I ran for county executive is I saw a declining population every year for 15 years. And as you know, road funding, state and federal revenue sharing, as well as a contraction of K through 12 students results in a loss of $9,200 state grant from the department, from Lansing, from state government. Whether you're a charter school student or a public school student, each student brings $9,200. Some bring more, like Birmingham. When Proposal A was passed, they were guaranteed that they would never fall below the level they were receiving at that time. So generally statewide, the figure is $9,200. So as we lose millennials to Oakland County or out of state, those are the age classifications that would be marrying and having children. And as I mentioned, our state and federal funding is a portion on a per capita basis, population. Road funding doesn't go by the number of roads you have in your county, it goes by the number of people you have in your county. So by stabilizing our population and maybe growing our population with additional investment that would create jobs, which would pay enough for people to actually seek and receive a mortgage to purchase a home that might be a 25 or 30-year mortgage. It's hard to do that if you're in the hospitality industry and you're working at $3 an hour wages and tips without job security. It's very difficult for a bank to make a 25, 30-year loan because they don't want to have an empty house come back. And the maintenance and the taxes and all that, they're not realtors and they'd rather not deal with that. So I'll just go through and I brought 5. I wasn't sure how many people we'd have tonight, but I did bring 5. I know it's not enough, but PowerPoint presentations on our budget. If you have questions, if you don't have a question tonight and you think of one later, feel free to contact me and we'll get you the information. And let's see, on a breakdown on our budget with taxes equals 46% of our Bay County budget. On property taxes, we took in $15.965 million this year. And then state grants, about $4 million, other funding, $4 million, other revenue, $3,410,000, $2 million for charges, federal grants, almost $3 million, and interest and rent, $1,128,000, and fines and forfeits and permits, about $797,000. So the Bay County General Fund property tax collection history, kind of interesting. In 2008, we were getting almost $18 million in property tax collections. In 2018, we fell to $15.9 million. So that's why we need to encourage investment into the county to expand our tax base and create additional employment opportunities to keep our millennial and younger generation here, raising their families here, keeping our population up.
How are you going to be working at increasing our population base here? Do you have anything in particular, any plans going forward?
I'm on the Bay Future Board of Directors, and unfortunately I can't list any specific projects that are on the table for Bay County, but one is massive. It would be well over $1 billion investment, almost $4 billion. We don't know if we'll get that, but it sure would be great if we could. But we have a number of other manufacturers, high-tech manufacturers, and others that are looking at Bay County, and have, say, Trevor Keys and Sherry Gray and Megan are doing a great job over on the staff at Bay Future, and we're trying to recruit as many people as we can. Just yesterday, I met with someone, we talked about opioids, but medical marijuana. There's an investor looking at a $60 million investment to create between 200, 300 full-time jobs, and it would be only medical marijuana, not recreational. As you know, in 2018, there will most likely, I think they have accumulated about 80% of the signatures they need to get on the ballot. And the recent polling, as of 6 weeks or so ago, it showed between 64 and 70% approval for recreational marijuana. But this particular developer or investor has a long history out of Birmingham and Southeast Michigan in the horticulture industry. So what they would it would be very tight security. The requirements on medical marijuana facility are very tight and stringent. Background checks, no criminal behavior, and what they'd like to focus on is the medicinal benefits of marijuana. They would not intend to generate marijuana that would be used for recreational use.
Is the Bay County Sheriff going to change their position, or is this kind of going to have to wait until the state laws all change?
Well, the state laws have changed, but the issue we have is the federal laws. And that's because I don't know what's happening in Colorado and California, the other states that have recreational use and have medical marijuana. But I believe under the strictest definition of the fact that the federal government still technically considers marijuana a illegal drug, and drug money cannot be deposited in a bank. I don't know how they're going to pay taxes on the salaries that are paid to the employees, or how the bills, their electric bills, which could be substantial for the cultivation of medical marijuana, taxes. How do you pay that? You'd have to pay that with cash. because you couldn't legally deposit drug proceeds in a lending institution, be it a credit union or a bank. So we'll see.
So this is all,
So far, the Obama administration pretty much had a hands-off attitude on allowing the states, under the guise of states' rights, to determine how they would regulate that. But we don't know with Attorney General Jeff Sessions and the new administration what their view will be. But there are, I think, 8 states that have already approved recreational marijuana. So I'm not sure how that will happen, but it hasn't deterred the investors. I know yesterday I spoke with Glenn Rowley in Bangor Township, and I think the last batch was 30 licenses to one investor, and each license is good for 1,500 plants. So we're talking, and they're looking at the old S.C. Johnson plant on Patterson Road and a $32 million investment there. As I mentioned, Penn County Township has a plant that hasn't broken ground. I believe the township's already received about $400,000 from that developer, which they're putting to good use in the township. And I believe that will be a $32 million investment in Penn County Township. And I understand that possibly Colquhoun Township may in the month of November also be adopting a medical marijuana facility resolution. So. Well, if the Bay City schools lose 90 students, that's about $1 million in lost revenue, or 100 students, that's $1 million that doesn't come to our community to pay salaries and for supplies in the classrooms and the costs of operating our public schools. So even a loss of a few hundred students can have a devastating impact. And combine that with the fact that our younger parents are reducing the size of their family. You know, when I was born, it was not uncommon to see a family with 5 or 6 children. Now pretty much it's 2 or 3. So we have smaller families, but also we have a out-migration of younger, well-educated young people that we wish we could retain, because many of them are attracted to better paying jobs or career opportunities in Oakland County or Kent County, or in many cases literally out of state. But I think things will get better, but we've got to align our university programs with what jobs are in demand in the private and public sectors. And then also Delta College, which is in Saginaw Valley, my alma mater, doing a great job. And then Delta can prepare students with 2 years of education with an engineering background or skilled trades. They can go out and first year earn $70,000 a year. So we got to invest in STEM education and make sure that our students that we're graduating are prepared for immediate employment, as opposed to continuing going on and sometimes not having the right degree that there's little demand for. Yeah, Gloria.
I just wondered if the county is already working or thinking about working with unions to develop apprentice programs?
Yes, in fact, I went to the Bay Area on the Go Thursday at the Doubletree right here, and down in the large conference room, and we had probably about 300 individuals from the audience, and the chamber had a panel consisting of labor representatives as well as management about skilled trades and talking about how important for example, the work is an electrician does, or an iron worker, or infrastructure, or carpenters. I mean, everything that we build, the work that we see going on downtown with the legacy, and the recently completed Times Lofts, the city market just across the street. You know, I went there the first 10 days, and it was, I think Rod Hildebrandt was counting the people coming through the door. For several days, it was 10,000 customers a day coming to the city market. Now it's slowed down a little bit as people have gotten used to it, but it's still a very thriving business entity, a nonprofit, by the way, that adds immensely, I think, to our downtown appeal.
So that meeting or panel discussion that you had is what came out of that? Did more apprentice jobs come out of that, or was it?
Well, not after one luncheon, but of course that, what we did, I think what the chamber is looking at is what can we do to work together to make sure that we educate the younger generation that you don't have to get a PhD in history, or you don't have to, you know, get a master's in theater or something to become gainfully employed. You have good jobs that need to be filled and sometimes go unfilled in the skilled trades, because that is a skilled profession. And just like, for example, our high-tech manufacturing, Dr. Shaheen has been a major investor in our riverfront, and I had lunch with him, and he continues his interest in Bay City and assured me that we will see additional growth on our Saginaw riverfront. We're sort of running out of space, but what we have left will be utilized, and I think we'll see more developments towards Saginaw on the riverfront here, but it'll require a little bit of time to get the shoreline of the Saginaw River in shape for development. It took us about 25 years of work to get where we're at today with our riverfront, but more can happen. And so we've got 350 employees now with, used to be Dow Corning, now Dow DuPont. So right here on the riverfront. So the Marriott Courtyard and Real Seafood and the Uptown Grill. Number of businesses just came from our Michigan Sugar Company there that hosts the monthly meetings for the board of directors of Bay Future. And as I say, I'm not at liberty to talk about projects that are pending, but we have some real interesting prospects, number of them, that if they happen, they will help us get to the goal of job creation and tax expansion. Another thing that I'm very pleased about that the board approved when I took office last January was the extension of the sunset date for the Valley Tech Park. In 15 years, they've created 1,473 jobs, $58 million payroll, and $30 million expansion of infrastructure that is taxable. So that generates additional revenues to provide services from local government, and it creates good paying jobs with health care and retirement security. And we had a vote 6-1 against extending the sunset date for 2 years. And we got in and worked with the commission and talked about the benefits, met with the 31 business owners out in Monterey Township that have invested there and created the employment and the tax base. And we did get an approval for a 10-year extension of the sunset date. So we have other employers that are interested in relocating out there as well, and there's additional property that can be acquired to expand the DDA park in Monterey Township. So progress is coming. It's slow, it's incremental, but it's steady. and we're not going to, I think we're all on the same page. I'm very pleased with the Board of Commissioners. Most everything, I think everything that I've asked for has been supported 7-0 by our commissioners. We're all united and working toward these goals that we're talking about. Another issue that, maybe I'll forget a little bit about the budget, but I kind of mentioned where we're at. We're in good shape. Our retirement, for example, I mentioned the increase, about 1.3 million in pay raises, which were long overdue. But to wrap up a little on the budget, I'll just mention our retirement is in very good shape in Bay County. As you know, the county doesn't pay exorbitant salaries. However, what it does have to offer is job security. We have 12 bargaining units. So to terminate an employee, you would have to have just cause, and they would have all rights to appeal and to have those issues mediated. But also we have a great health care plan for our employees, and we have a defined benefit pension. And as you know, it's getting increasingly rare for employers to offer defined benefit pensions as opposed to 401ks, which can go up and down at the whim of the stock market. And also you can borrow from your 401k in the event of an emergency or a one-time basis. You can take a large loan out. But what that does is then your 401k won't grow at the rate that is supposed to grow, and you may find yourself in retirement exhausting your 401k, whereas your defined benefit pensions last until your death. So that is one of the great attributes that we have in Bay County compared to where other counties stand. Our retirement, our general group as of December 31st, 2016, has a funded ratio of 117%. And as a result, the employer contribution to the pension system will remain at 4% for 2018. Also, on a positive note in retirement, the sheriff's group that I alluded to a little earlier, as of December 31st, 2016, has a funded ratio in the pension fund of 127%. So again, that will, and we've been higher because we are investing those pension funds in various instruments, financial instruments. So heck, at one time back in 2008, our pension was, sheriff's pension was funded 158%. Now we do have a lot of counties that don't have those kind of healthy balances. So the Michigan Association of Counties contacted me to see if I'd want to be involved in a task force that would basically redefine health and pension benefits for villages, municipalities, and counties. And I said, as long as a county is fiscally healthy like Bay County is, we want an exemption from what you want to do. I'm a Democrat. I believe that working families need to have these benefits to have security for their future. They work hard, they're dedicated. We have a diverse workforce with a strong work ethic, and other counties around the state do too. But I am a Democrat and I support protecting our benefits. There's really no reason for us to give up a defined benefit pension plan or reduce dramatically the coverage of our health care insurance for our employees. Because as I say, a lot of people are attracted to county employment not because of exorbitant or high salaries, but because of job security and the benefits that come with county employment. So what I'll do, I guess at this point, we're only got 10 minutes left, darn it. What I'd like to do is hear a little more from you. Gloria, why don't you finish your question if I didn't get to it there?
My question is on a totally different track, but it's under the county.
Yeah.
Has the county looked at our how we organize voting, and are we initiating anything to make sure that
Voting is easier and accessible to most citizens.
And protected from outside interference.
Well, cybersecurity is always a key issue, and I know that will continue to be an issue in future elections.
But are we doing anything? Is there a plan?
Yeah, well, we do, yeah, we got a $500,000 grant from the state to purchase all new voting equipment. And our clerk, our county clerk, Cindy Luzak, has been out on the road visiting various townships and communities throughout Bay County to demonstrate how easy it is with this new technology. The print is a lot bigger and you can just touch the name instead of having to fill in the circle with a pen or whatever. So it is state-of-the-art technology, and it was provided courtesy of the state government, Secretary of State's office, through a $500,000 grant. So we won't see the arrival of all this equipment. We won't have it in place in time for the this November election, but it will be in place in 2018. And Cindy's working very hard training the employees who volunteer to conduct the elections on the new technology that will be utilized. And when I was in Congress,
Short film after you're done.
Okay.
Cindy was going to be here?
Yes, I did get a call from her and said she wouldn't be able to make it. No. Yeah, but she would be a great speaker for a future event. Especially with your mission on voting. I mean, nothing more important than the integrity of our electoral system, as well as ease and speed with which people can cast their ballots. Frankly, I'd like to go to no fault absentee voting as well, like many other states have. You can vote 30 days before an election. The more people that vote, the better decisions ultimately we will make and policies implemented. Yeah.
Do you have any idea, I remember in 2016 presidential election, makes a difference, I'm sure, but that there was, at least where I voted, when they scan driver's licenses, the computer leaves there. There was something funky about it, and I never understood because people basically sat there waiting for like a half an hour until
someone came to help fix the equipment. I did get a lot of complaints, and I know in the primary that I was involved in, we had several precincts that were shut down for several hours, and we hate to see that. That's why we needed this upgraded equipment so badly, because by the time you get someone out there to get it up and running again, many people have been discouraged because they have responsibilities, they have to get to work, or they have other appointments that day, and it's a long line and it's shut down for 2 hours. They just simply leave, and in many cases might not come back to cast their ballots.
so outdated software then, if you think?
Yes, it was.
This new system?
It was well over 10 years old, and so the new equipment, if you haven't had a chance to see it, if Cindy comes to a future meeting, have her bring some of the new equipment, and it's much more consumer friendly and speedier and and a lot more accurate. But we always have to be on guard with cybersecurity and making sure that all of our systems, whether it's banking, voting, Pentagon, whatever it is protected from hackers. We talk about autonomous cars, and everyone's excited about those. And Tesla unveiled a autonomous car in China, a driverless car, and it was a demonstration with a lot of the auto industry in China. They have over 100 auto production companies in China. Many of them produce very subcompact cars because they have 1.3 billion people. We have 320 million here. So there's a great demand for these affordable, small, efficient in terms of fuel automobiles. But this Tesla automobile crashed and burned and was totaled because someone was able to hack into the system. And that's another issue, that if we have an autonomous vehicle and one that gets in a collision or a crash with a driver behind the wheel, who's at fault? If it was the autonomous car that caused the accident or the crash, do you sue the manufacturer? Plus, there are going to be additional requirements on keeping abreast of all the latest technology, because when you purchase a car, sometimes you might keep it 8-9 years, depending on, if you get it serviced regularly and you like your car, you might keep it 4 or 5 or more years. And so the technology changes during that period of time will be dramatic. Change will occur exponentially. And so it'll be incumbent upon the owners of those autonomous vehicles to be abreast of all the changes in the technology and the operation of autonomous vehicles.
As far as the voting machines, are we still the only county in Michigan that's 100% new equipment? This new equipment, I know we were at one time.
We were in the forefront, but I think we'll see a lot more counties come on board. But to Cindy's credit, she was out front early on that, because precisely some of her equipment was causing long lines, was not, newer technology. And now we've got really state of the art, and it was at no cost to the taxpayers. Now, I wanted to mention too another program that we're instituting through the Bay County Department of Health. We have not located a site yet, but we've partnered with a statewide organization that will provide dental services for our underserved population throughout Bay County. And we'll have 2 full-time dentists, we'll have 3 dental hygienists, 3, I believe it is, dental assistants. We located somewhere in Bay County, not in the health department, but it will be entirely funded by federal and state funds. And we expect to serve about 9,000 people who currently don't have access or cannot afford dental visits, whether it's for cleanings and regular maintenance, or if someone should get an abscess from a decayed tooth, that can actually be life-threatening, because you can suffer from endocarditis, which is caused from an abscess tooth, too many white blood cells, killer T cells. They go out, and in addition to fighting the infection in the abscess tooth, it also reduces and attacks the muscle of the heart. So someone who has a dental issue can end up dying of a heart attack or heart failure as a result of this nasty infection they had that they let go because they didn't have the resources to get attention and medical treatment for their condition. Dental health is just like any other aspect of our health. It has serious implications if you let it go. So, but that'll be a new service, brand new to Bay County. Currently, there are about 36 other sites around the state that provide this more or less free dental care to people who cannot afford it.
I thought we had that out in Monitor.
Well, what they do at Bay Health is a Bay Health. I know when I was in Congress, we worked with David Gomez to get federal funding to build it, and it has a bus that goes around to schools, and then on a limited basis, we'll see some individuals if they're in serious condition. But what they do is great too. They'll actually visit elementary schools or high schools, and if someone needs their teeth cleaned and hasn't been to the dentist in a while, they can provide that on site, but it's quite limited in terms of what they can do. I think they have a part-time dentist, and we'll have 2 full-time dentists. So we're expecting about 9,000 residents a year to have access now to dental care.
So this will be a freestanding dental clinic?
Yes, it will. And we haven't determined the location yet. Will not be at the health department. Now, we have a Medicaid clinic, the Bay City Dental Clinic on Center Avenue. But again, the Medicaid reimbursement rates are like $14 in some cases for a dental visit. That's why most dentists won't see Medicaid patients. They won't accept them. And so we have this dental clinic in which we have 4 or 5 dentists who volunteer their time, more or less, to give relief to people who are suffering from dental issues but have no means of visiting a regular dentist. But that's very limited again. It's on a volunteer basis, and they do a great job, but it's not nearly what we need. We also have a clinic for general health issues that people experience. Collaboration between my alma mater, Saginaw Valley State University, and the Bay County Health Department. And we have number of healthcare professionals that are in the Health and Human Services program at Saginaw Valley. who come in and volunteer their time. They're students, so they're not certified yet. However, they are qualified to render care to some of the people that need it on a volunteer basis. So we're helping a lot of people through the Bay County Health Clinic too. So on just typical health issues that people have to confront. The other thing we need to do is be more proactive about what to do to avoid chronic illness, whether it's obesity, substance abuse, smoking, tobacco, regular health visits if you can, how we can avoid some of these very expensive chronic diseases that cause tremendous cost, to our governments at state and federal and local level. Yeah.
On that note, we really need to look at, I don't know how much control over this we have, but a lot of the schools in Bay City have free breakfast now, and the stuff that they serve for breakfast is just a bunch of junk. They're like chocolate-covered donuts and sugar cereal.
Well, I didn't hear about that. Most of the complaints I get are about the healthy food. My grandson goes to John Glenn, and they have a very good menu out there. It's usually an apple. They have a snack, but it's not sugary. And then if they have pizza, they'll have vegetarian pizza. And what's that?
Yeah, this is the elementary school, and then
Okay.
not only that, and then they have a snack like 30 minutes after they eat breakfast or whatever.
Yeah. I know that some of the schools may have changed their formats a little bit. When Michelle Obama made that one of her central themes when she was First Lady, to try to enhance the nutritional value of the meals in the school systems. That was a cause of hers for the garden and the Rose Garden and at the White House. And I'm not sure I know there was some resistance to carrots and celery sticks and things as opposed to pancakes or, other items that students would be served. Yeah.
Do you look at packaging on those food items?
Yeah, there's like they send something home, like the thing in the packaging, it just crumples into dust. It's like it's really bad.
It's all whole grain based. Like the donuts are all whole grain donuts. My daughter goes to. Yeah, and like the Pop Tarts they get, you can't even buy in a store. They're like whole grain, low sugar Pop Tarts. It's still all junk food.
Right.
It's like
Healthy junk food. Healthy junk.
So you're confirming what she was saying about some of the items served?
Yes, my daughter
Okay.
makes donuts almost.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a long process, but we have to continue to sort of break that cycle of consuming unhealthy foods. And one of the things is I've been on the task force on opiate addiction. Sugar is also highly addictive, and it can cause issues with diabetes and inflammation, arthritis, other conditions that people have. And so you have to watch everything is good in moderation, but you have to be careful because it can become almost addictive. People develop a sweet tooth. I know I've had one. And it's not easy to diet if you're consuming sugar. So that's an issue that, I think as we move ahead, we have to be mindful of, because they say it's almost as addictive as heroin or other substances. Once you acquire that taste for it, gives the brain a sensation that your brain craves. But yeah, now Pam, you wanted me to mention, I know I've exceeded my time limit, but I'm enjoying it, and I know some of you may have to leave. Oh, all right. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, you're right. Pam, one of the first times I met Pam, she came down to the county building to talk about the Independence Bridge span and what the plans were by the city to replace that, because it is structurally becoming unsound. And we're probably looking at a 2-year lifespan at this point on it, if nothing were done. So the city considered going with a private company out of state. I think it was based in New York or Florida or something. East Coast, I believe. And they've done a number of toll bridges. That's a very hot issue in Bay City and Bay County. The initial forecast, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the mayor or the city manager, but I've attended the city meetings and we've had several sessions with city officials, what their plans are. They would initially had considered, and I'm not sure what the status is, I'll be at the Bay City Commission meeting this Monday night where it will be on the agenda again for discussion. Because any of the three proposals to generate revenue to replace the Independence Bridge, and the Liberty Bridge is also in poor condition, would require a vote of the Bay County Board of Commissioners. And while I can't speak for the board, I know I've talked to them, I understand their concerns, the millage would be somewhat of a challenge because under state law, if you, let's say, approved a large millage, although we'd be bumping up against the Headley 50 mil cap, because in Bay County we're at 45 mils. We have about 5 mils to spare before we get to the 50 mil cap. But if one township, and one did already indicate to me, we will support and campaign for that proposal as long as the millage raised for the bridge or for transportation stays in our township, we can spend it on roads. So if you have one unit of government, the 5 municipalities and the 14 townships that wants to hold on to their money and not see it dedicated to replacing the Independence Bridge, then all of the money will have to be distributed to each local unit of government. So you'll be down to just the residents of City of Bay City paying the millage. As I mentioned, the expected cost raised from about $10 million for demolition, $80 million on the initial bridge. The latest version I heard is $120 million. So the tolls would go from $2 to cross to $4. And I suspect, and I will share this, with the discussions as we go forward with our city officials, I think a lot of our residents in Bay City and Bay County might take the 2 state bridges, Lafayette and Veterans, to avoid paying what could, over a month span, be a fair amount of money in toll fines. There would be cameras that would look at your license plate, determine your residence. If you're a city resident, it'd be $2 a crossing. If you're a non-city resident, it'd be $4 a crossing. But it all determines it's all going to be determined by what the city commission, the manager, and the mayor determine is the best way to proceed on replacing that span. Now, another possibility would be bonds, and that would have to be voted on. This library is the only outstanding bonded indebtedness that we have in the county. We're proud of our Bay County library system, and I know my wife and I publicly supported the campaign for the initial millage because we both had fond memories of growing up of spending time in libraries and being exposed to worlds that you could only imagine in your little hometown. And so we appreciate and understand, and I know the voters of Bay County have understood the importance of our Bay County library system and been consistently supportive. But you're currently the only bonded project that Bay County has outstanding. Now, we just last year completed the $967,000 bond payments on the Bay County Civic Arena from the 90s. That's finally paid off, and that helped us cushion a little bit in the budget the increases in costs on the pay raises for county employees, which again, I want to emphasize, I supported 9 years worth of pay raise. Those county employees deserve a pay raise. So, yes.
I'm a little behind on my toll bridge use. So are you saying that if we don't go with the private company, the city's still going to do a toll bridge?
It's possible. Some of the commissioners are concerned about turning over our infrastructure to a privately held company. It might be difficult to assert the will of the people locally to some company from the East Coast that's a global multi-billion-dollar corporation.
I think most people, if it has to be a toll bridge, would probably feel better if the money's coming back into the city.
Well, back into the city, yes. So that'll be an issue. I know at least 2 or 3 of the commissioners have mentioned they're not for the idea of privatizing our infrastructure. But I think other than Mackinac and the Ambassador Bridge, which is international bridge, I think we might be the first Pam, would we be the first toll bridge in Michigan? And under state statute, the County Board of Commissioners, after the city concludes that's their plan, then the County Board of Commissioners, are 7 commissioners that represent all of Bay County, would have to vote affirmatively for that to appear before the voters. And it would, whatever happens, it would have to be approved by the voters of Bay County. But it is controversial, no matter which approach you take. One of the issues is the size of the bridge. It would be slightly larger than the Zilwaukee Bridge. So,
I can't imagine that visually.
What?
I can't imagine where does that fit in our city?
Right. Bridges.
well, I think the concept was to avoid having to open the spans for the freighters to pass through. But ultimately, and this is just my personal opinion, I think people might rather wait for the Apple door to pass or some of the freighters to pass. Because, all winter we don't have that traffic. And yeah, we've all been frustrated when we're in a hurry and we're on a schedule and we're waiting on a long line to cross the bridge because, a little sailboat with a flag on the mast is going through and it's 2 feet taller. And if it was a little bit shorter, you wouldn't have to open the span. But because it's international waters, Bay County can't set up a schedule for boats to pass through. We're considered international waters, Saginaw Bay, Lake Huron, Saginaw River. So the Coast Guard has control over our Saginaw River, we don't.
So that was the reason for designing this gigantic bridge, was because people didn't like waiting?
I think we'd have to talk to the city officials, but I think the proposal the company made proposed that, and I think for convenience sake, it would be nice not to have to open and shut it. Frankly, I think it's up to the city, and I don't want to say this is a public forum, but I think one thing the city ought to consider is what would it take to repair it, to allow us to, by 10 years' time, beyond the 2 years, so that we could replicate what I did in Congress, and that was get M15 extended from Center Avenue to I-75 on Wilder Road, because it really is a regional bridge. A lot of people from the Thumb and from people that reside outside of Bay County use our bridges for commerce, for tourism, for going to their cabin up north. So I really think that if we put a full force effort on our area legislators, federal and state, that we might be able to convince the new governor, after Governor Schneider leaves, that ought to be an MDOT responsibility. They have far more resources than we do to deal with replacing a bridge of that size. And we are a city that, more than 150 years ago, close to 200 years ago, built a town that was split by a river. And there's only a few, it's Muskegon and Bay City and Saginaw, but we have 4 spans, more than any other city in Michigan. They may decide to drop Liberty or Independence, I'm not sure, their decision to make. But I would say, Pam, that it's not going to be an easy issue to get through. People, rightly so, are frugal because costs continue to escalate. Incomes in Michigan have not risen correspondingly, and a lot of people are concerned about spending more and more money just without seeing, maybe for convenience. So if we could invest 10 or 15 million to repair it and buy us additional time, when I was in Congress, I offered an amendment. I was on the Surface Transportation Subcommittee, and I redrew the M15 line under the ICE-T legislation to extend M15 from Center all the way to I-75. That would have solved our problem. Would have been a Michigan highway, and the bridge would have been MDOT's responsibility. But MDOT has consistently all along refused to want to take responsibility for the Independence Bridge. But we all know something like close to 30% or more of the traffic over the bridge daily are people who do not reside in Bay County. And yet to replace that structure with a large, nice, modern bridge that would last us, I'm sure, for decades, be very expensive. The only people who would be contributing would be those that reside in Bay County. So, yeah, well, thank you very much. You've been a very gracious audience. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thanks for your time, and most importantly, thanks for your suggestions and questions. And Pam, I compliment you and the other volunteers tonight who are helping you launch a League of Women Voters effort in Bay County. I know over my long career in public service how important informing the electorate is to make decisions in their own best interest. If they're equipped with the knowledge and the facts and the information, they will vote what's best for the future of their community and their individual families. And the work that you're doing in the League of Women Voters is critical to our democratic system functioning optimally. So thank you very much.